The results section. So in the results section, we want to objectively present the findings. And this word objectively means without opinion and without interpretation. This is what I saw. So 18% of men were not circumcised. That is an objective presentation of a finding. 18% of men were not circumcised, and this is a big problem that we must address in Kenya. That is not objective. You are giving your opinion or your interpretation. So the results are just the facts. No interpretation, no opinion. What did you see in your study? Okay. And a lot of times I see people trying to put opinions into their results, and I take those opinions and I put them into the discussion. Okay. Just the facts and the results. And usually it is tables and figures and then a little bit of text to describe, to help readers guide themselves through what's important in the tables and the figures. So here is a table that was in your paper. And one of the things I asked you based on this table is, how many men in this study were circumcised? That is the number of circumcised men. 6,586 men were circumcised. What was the HIV prevalence in this group? 3.9% of them were infected. How many uncircumcised men were in the study? So 1,092 uncircumcised men. And what was the HIV prevalence in uncircumcised men? 13.2% were uncircumcised. Okay? So just the facts, just the numbers that they observed in their study in terms of the number circumcised and the HIV prevalence in that group, and the numbers uncircumcised and the HIV prevalence in that group. And then you see here this interval. And I want to take a few minutes to describe to you what is the information that is contained in that interval. We said the HIV prevalence was 3.9% in the circumcised men. So what is this interval that they're giving us? What does it mean? So the authors estimated that the prevalence of HIV in circumcised men was 3.9%. Are you 100% sure that is the true HIV prevalence in all circumcised men in all of Kenya in 2007? Okay. Are you 100% sure that is the HIV prevalence of all circumcised men in all of Kenya? What is the only way that I can know without any doubts what the true prevalence of HIV is in uncircumcised men in Kenya? The only way I can know without any doubt is look at everyone. In this case, all circumcised men in all of Kenya. So if you have a census, if you look at every circumcised man in all of Kenya, then you can know with confidence, without any doubt, what the HIV prevalence is. But as Eileen said, we have a sample, and so we're not completely sure. We're confident, but we're not 100% confident. So we have some uncertainty in our results because we are looking at a sample and we are not looking at a census. We are not 100% sure because we have a sample. And what that interval gives us, what that confidence interval gives us, is a range of values that likely covers the true value. It gives us a range of possible HIV prevalence that likely covers the true HIV prevalence. So when I started this study, I did not know the HIV prevalence in circumcised men. I do the study and I estimate that it's 3.9%. Do you think 100% it is 3.9%? Do you think that is the exact rate of HIV prevalence? No. The only way for me to know is if I look at all men. So I don't think it's exactly 3.9%. But the interval from 3.3% to 4.5%, that's the interval in the paper. That interval, I am pretty confident, covers the true HIV prevalence. So I don't think it is 3.9%, but I do think this interval from 3.3 to 4.5% covers what the HIV prevalence is. Now I will say this, confidence intervals, the first time you see it, it's going to feel a little bit somehow. And then the second time you see it, it's going to feel a little bit somehow. And I promise you, as we look at them again and again for the next 10 weeks, by the end you will feel more confident in what a confidence interval is. So I am pretty confident that this interval covers the true prevalence. This word pretty confident, does anyone know how confident I am? 95%, okay? So I am pretty confident, and generally it can vary paper by paper, but generally what they report is the 95% confidence interval. And what I am saying is I am 95% confident that this interval covers the true HIV prevalence. So how do we use confidence intervals? We generally use them to answer a question. So we use them to say, are we at a certain level, or how are we doing between two groups? So I might say, has a program coverage achieved a desired target? Or is prevalence at a certain level? So I want to use this HIV prevalence in the circumcised men to answer this question. So a generalized HIV epidemic is when the prevalence is 1%. So a generalized HIV prevalence is when the prevalence is 1%. And I want to know, are we in a generalized HIV epidemic in circumcised men in Kenya? And so here's my 1%. This is the threshold that defines a generalized epidemic. My prevalence in circumcised men was 3.9%. Do you think that is the truth? 100% sure. Is 3.9% the prevalence in circumcised men? No. So then I have this interval that I think covers the truth. So I don't think 1% is the truth, but I think that this interval covers the truth. I'm 95% confident that this interval covers the truth. So how does that interval compare to my 1% target? If you had to describe what we observed compared to our target, how would you describe it? Does it look like it's the same as 1%? Does it look different from 1%? It's higher than 1%. So I don't know what the truth is. I think the truth is somewhere here, and it is far away from 1%. So in this case, I would say that we are different from 1%. And when the entire interval sits away like that, we use this term significantly different. So not only is 3.9% different from 1, there is evidence that we are significantly different from 1%. And generally, there are 3 different types of intervals that you can see. So you have some hypothesized value, some target. In our case, it was 1%. And you can either see an interval here, or you can see an interval here, or you can see an interval here. So I'm going to call this A, B, and C. For which of these intervals do you think I can say it is different from this hypothesized value? For which of these intervals does it look like it is different from the hypothesized value? A and C. For these intervals, they are different. For A, if you look at A, I don't know the truth, but the interval that I think covers the truth is far above this target. So in this case, I say it is significantly more than the hypothesized value. In this case, I don't know the truth, but I think the interval covers the truth, and it sits away from the hypothesized value. In this case, I say there is evidence that it is significantly below the value. This one, what can I say? I don't know the truth. I think this interval covers the truth, and I see that the interval covers my hypothesized value. So in this case, I say there is no evidence that it is different from this value. Because it's possible the truth is here, it's possible the truth is here, or it is possible that the truth is my hypothesized value. So for A and C, I can say significantly different. For B, I say no evidence. Of a difference. So there's no evidence that I am different from this hypothesized value. I don't know the truth. It is possible the truth is here. It is possible the truth is here. Or it is possible that the truth is my hypothesized value. So I cannot say that there is a difference because it is possible that I am here. Notice I don't look at my estimate, I look at the interval. If you want to make statements about your program, you don't look here. You told me you don't believe this, but you do believe this, right? So don't look at the number, look at the interval. You're going to see this again. Make a note of this. You're going to see it again and again and again and again, including on your homework. Okay, so another thing you can use intervals for is to compare two groups. So when you compare two groups, notice that each group has its own interval. Okay, so you have your estimate in circumcised men, and you have your estimate in uncircumcised men. So each group has its own interval. So let's call this, here's scenario A, here's scenario B, and here's scenario C. For which of these pictures could I say that the groups are significantly different from each other? For which of these pictures could I say that the groups are significantly different for each other? Again, A and C. I don't know the truth for A and the truth for group 1 and the truth for group 2, but I think that these intervals cover the truth and they're far apart, so I think they really are different. For the scenario A, I would say it looks like group 2 is significantly more than group 1. For C, I would say it looks like group 1 is significantly more than group 2. For scenario B, I don't know the truth for group 1. I don't know the truth for group 2, but there is an area here that overlaps where the truth could be. And so I cannot say that there is difference because maybe it is the same. It's somewhere in that overlap. Okay? So keeping that in mind, I would like you to apply that to your table. So we have the estimates in the confidence interval for HIV in circumcised men, and we have the estimate in the confidence interval for HIV in uncircumcised men. What do you think we can say about HIV prevalence between circumcised men and uncircumcised men based on the interval? The estimate was 3.9, and the interval is 4.5 to 3.3. Okay? Thanks. For the second one, the estimate was much higher. It was 13.2. And the interval went from 15.7. Sorry, that was the top. From 10.8 to 15.7. Okay. So I look at the intervals and they look like this. So what can I conclude about the HIV prevalence between circumcised men and uncircumcised men? What is my conclusion? They are significantly different between the two groups, okay? What if it looked like this? If it overlaps, I cannot say they are different. If the intervals overlap, I cannot say they are different. But in this case, they do not overlap, and so I can conclude that they are significantly different. So we're going to do this for the next 9 weeks. So if it feels a little bit meh now, I promise you it will feel better in the future.